Spiralling debt crisis, record high unemployment, trust low. It's a wonder anyone would want to join the EU. But after more than 10 years of tough negotiations, Croatia has managed to achieve just that. And July 1st looks set to be its date with destiny. Joining me to discuss this and take your questions is a man who's been very much part of those entry negotiations, Croatia's ambassador to Belgium and Luxembourg, Mario Nobilo. Ambassador, many thanks for joining us here on iTalk. We're going to go to our first question now, which comes from Hungary.
Hello, Böbe vagyok Magyarországról. Szerintetek miért jó a horvátoknak, hogyha az Európai Unió tagjai lesznek?
It's a very good question, isn't it? Because Europe's hardly the most attractive proposal at the moment.
Well, we believe there is no alternative to Croatian membership to European Union. Historically, we belong to Europe, and also Croatia is a post-conflict country, and the European project is also a project of peace through cooperation. So there is also a message beyond our membership, the stability of the region, and here we have Croatia, a country, a new member with a special task towards the region.
Yeah, but Croatia's not in great shape either. I think, your unemployment figures are high, your growth is low, and your investment potential is junk. How can you convince or reassure Europeans that you're not going to be the next country that needs a bailout?
Well, indeed, but most of Europe is in crisis, in a recession, and also Croatia is a post-conflict country. We spend billions of euro to rebuild the country after the war, and also the costly negotiations with the EU, the adjustment to the acquis had cost our economy a lot. But on the other hand, Croatia, during the 90s and beyond, had proved its vitality, its ability to liberate itself, to rebuild itself, to pass through inner catharsis, and also to pass through tough negotiations with the EU. We are the first country of the new generation of acceding countries that is entering alone.
So no bailout then? You can categorically say that that's just off the cards?
I believe so, because our structural problems are different than those that you are facing today in Cyprus or in Greece. They are more or less a consequence of triple transition from war to peace, from one system to another, and as partly also of the negotiations with the EU. But again, our potential is great. We have 70% of European average, so I don't believe Croatia is going to be a new problem in financial or any sense for European Union. On the contrary.
And joining the euro, when's that going to happen?
Well, that depends very much on the ability and decision of Croatia. The timing here is, of course, crucial. It will probably take some time, but we are in that aspect also euro enthusiastic. We would join euro one day. We believe this crisis is temporary. It's going to pass, and our next aim is to enter a Schengen area in several years.
Okay, we're going to go to our next question, and that question comes from Croatia. And the question is, why is the idea of post-accession monitoring undertaken by Croatian institutions for the sake of sustainability of reforms treated as an insult to the nation, rather than Croatia's ID as an EU member committed and proactive in promoting the rule of law? So, post-accession monitoring is kind of a fair enough thing to want to do. Europe's in enough trouble as it is. Is it deemed an insult?
Well, Croatia is the first country of a new generation of acceding countries that had passed through very difficult, very demanding, tough negotiations. And so we have to prove our ability not only to legally integrate acquis communautaire, but also prove that it's working in reality. So it was meant to prevent the post-accession monitoring, because the EU had also learned that monitoring that was implemented in case of Romania and Bulgaria did not really produce the change. So it's not an insult, but the mechanism was set for Croatia to prevent the post-accession monitoring.
Okay, but corruption has been endemic in Croatia. How can you be convinced that these reforms are going to stay on track?
Well, it has been endemic in some of the core countries of the European Union, but we are very tough on corruption, and half of the former government had been put on trial. We have serious cases being prosecuted, so I believe it goes beyond the EU membership. It's not because of the EU, it is because to get rid of all those consequences of war and purifying the post-conflict society. It is far more important to us than to the EU.
But the EU Enlargement Commissioner did actually say that corruption is still a very, an important issue in Croatia. How do you respond to that?
Well, there are so many cases going on currently against the former top politicians in the country, but also on local level. It's on daily basis new cases emerging, and I believe that the anti-corruption campaign in Croatia has life of its own. We have proved that our judiciary system is capable to handle them. Otherwise, it would not be admitted to the European Union had this been a huge problem of Croatia.
But we know that many countries, when they join, they slip back. You're not concerned that there's going to be any complacency in that respect? No, because, we're very sensitive to the consequences of conflict and those who got rich during the conflict years. And this is the key political issue in the country. So I believe it goes beyond, it has not much to do with EU membership, but it's very genuine and affects the mind of people in my country. Okay, well, we're going to go now to our final question.
Здравствуйте, меня зовут Роман, я с Украины. У меня вопрос к вам. Скажите, пожалуйста, а что вы думаете по поводу присоединения к Европейскому Союзу других стран Восточной Европы, в частности, Украины?
I don't know how well placed you feel to talk about Ukrainian membership to the EU, but what do you think about the enlargement prospects in general? Do you think the EU should press the pause button and take stock or continue the process?
Well, people talk about the fatigue of the enlargement, of course, and there is some element of fatigue in current crisis of the EU institutions, especially financial crisis. However, I believe that enlargement is certainly going to continue in the southeastern Europe. We should not leave this black hole or grey area to thrive for decades, though it will probably take also a long time for those countries to join European Union. With the eastern partners, I'm not sure how far that is going to evolve. It is more likely that we would have a special relations with our eastern partners because of geopolitical complexity, but also probably because some of them are, even for the EU, difficult to handle.
And the other Balkan states?
Well, I believe they still stand a good chance. Some would do it quicker. Some will take a longer time to join.
Which will take longer?
Well, countries like Bosnia that are very complex internally, Kosovo in its institution building, this is going to require a lot of time. Macedonia is also another complex internal and regionally case.
Serbia is also a bit of an issue for Croatia in particular.
Well, Serbia has institutional capacity to move through the negotiation process relatively easily, but it has regional issues that it has to tackle profoundly, Kosovo and others in years to come. Maybe Montenegro as a candidate country has better chances to be the next country joining EU after Croatia. Is it 7 or 10 years? It's difficult to predict, but they are on a good track, I believe.
Ambassador, many thanks for joining us on iTalk. Now, you can see who our next guest on iTalk will be on our Euronews website, so do keep your questions coming. From the European Parliament studios here in Brussels, thanks for joining us.